Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tao of Our Understanding podcast. Anyone new? We're just a bunch of drunks and addicts that are studying the Tao. I'd like to welcome Kate and Marla and Kurt and Zach and Derek and Craig. Yes, we still have Craig. Yay! I know that the first literature we're going to go through is this book by Thomas Merton on Chuang Tzu. Does anyone know or need some information on Thomas Merton, who he is? Anyone know anything about him? I looked him up on Wikipedia just so I could get a real background on him. I'd heard Richard Rohr talk a lot about him.
Yeah, he's a famous philosopher.
Yeah, he wrote 50 books in 27 years.
Shit.
Mostly on spirituality, social justice, and quiet pacifism. He was a Trappist, an American Trappist monk, writer, theologian, mystic, poet, social activist, and scholar of comparative religion. He died in 1968, 53 years old. So he wrote a lot. He was featured in National Review's list of 100 best nonfiction books for his book, The Seven-Story Mountain, in 1948. He's a proponent of interfaith understanding, pioneered dialogue with prominent Asian spiritual figures, including the Dalai Lama, D.T. Suzuki, the Taoist, the Thai Buddhist monk Buddha Dasa, and the Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh. He authored books on Zen Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. So he was one of the first people I read when I started looking into Taoist thought. So thought it was good that we started with his book. Now, how about Chuang Tzu or Chuang Tzu, ever how you want to pronounce it? Does anyone have any background on him? Craig and I were talking about it before the meeting. You want to share what we talked about, Craig?
The only thing I heard was Todd and Dr. Todd talking about how it was probably Chuang Tzu who wrote the Tao, something like that.
They don't know really, Marla. You're right. They don't know if Lao Tzu actually wrote it or if his students wrote it or what. So there's a lot of different thought about that. Mm-hmm. And when we got to looking, Craig, you mentioned what he lived 100 years after.
Yeah, from what I understand, he was just because what confused me was the fact that he was a student of Lao Tzu. And if somebody says I'm a student of Lao Tzu, that really means to me that I go to school with him and that I spend a lot of time with him. But from my understanding is he was a student of the works of Lao Tzu. So I think there's about 100 years of a difference between Lao Tzu dying and Chuang Tzu. I could be complete. I can't remember where I heard that. So don't quote me if it was wrong, but that was my understanding. He's a student of his works,
and he had a different approach too than the Tao Te Ching. This is a whole different type of writing. This is more parable and a lot of humor and a little more abstract and in story form too.
I think if you compare it to the Bible, Lao Tzu is more like the he was like the Old Testament, and Chuang Tzu is more like the New Testament. He kind of puts it more like this is how we would do it. This is how we can do things. This is how we can do things for us, rather than I think like the Tao Te Ching talks about the sages, how the sages do things, but I think Chuang Tzu deals with how we can deal with things as just your everyday human.
And isn't that what it's all about? Is learning how to apply this in everyday life. So if I can't apply it, why do I need it? You know?
Yeah, he's actually only credited apparently with writing 7 7 of the books in the Chuang Tzu, though. I think a lot of the other ones were written by his students. So I think it's like 24, 25 that was actually written by other people about him or about their experiences with Chuang Tzu as well.
Yeah, and I know what we're going to do is go through Merton's interpretation, and then we're going to go to a book, a list of all of his stories, and the ones that we didn't talk about in Merton's book, we'll talk about then. So this is on page 11 in the Merton Chuang Tzu book. Chuang Tzu is not concerned with words and formulas. It's presented in a parable, a fable, or a funny story about a conversation between two philosophers. Not all the stories are necessarily Chuang Tzu himself. We mentioned that. It's a compilation in which some chapters are almost certainly by the master himself, but many others, especially the latter ones, are by his disciples. But the whole teaching, the way, I'm going to mute you, Chris. But the whole teaching, the way contained in these anecdotes, poems, and meditations is characteristic of a certain mentality found everywhere in the world, a certain taste of simplicity, a taste for simplicity, for humility, self-effacement, silence, and in general, a refusal to take seriously the being aggressive, the ambition, the push. Yeah, Craig, I couldn't get it out. And the self-importance which one must display in order to get along in society. This other is a way that prefers not to get anywhere in the world or even in the field of some supposedly spiritual attainment. For me, that is one description of this Wu way that we're looking for, this effortless effort, this way to approach life of ease, Anything else standing out to you guys? And now this is the introduction to the book by Abbey of Gethsemane, Pentecost, 1965. For Chuang Tzu, as for the gospel, to lose one's life is to save it, and to seek to save it for one's own sake is to lose it. There's an affirmation of the world that is nothing but ruin and loss. There is a renunciation of the world that finds and saves man in his own home, which is God's world. In any event, the way of Chuang Tzu is mysterious because it is so simple that it can get along without being a way at all. Least of all is it a way out. Chuang Tzu would have agreed with St. John of the Cross that you enter upon this kind of way when you leave all ways and in some sense get lost. Comments?
Hey, this is Derek.
Hey, man.
I have a comment. It kind of reminded me when I read that part of how a lot of alcoholics who come into AA, it feels like we've tried everything, and it's like, I don't know about for you guys, but for me, when I came to AA, it's like the last stop on the block because I had tried everything. And it was like I had to stop trying my way is what it came down to. And so when I was reading that, that's kind of what I related it to in my own sobriety path. I also have a note about page 10 where it says this book does not intend to prove anything or to convince anyone of anything that it that they did not want to hear about in the first place, which I thought that was interesting too.
Anything or to convince anyone of anything that he does not want to hear about
in the first place. Yeah. Like when I was reading that, it reminded me of the lead singer of Pearl Jam in an interview one time when they asked him about his songs. What do they mean? What do your songs mean? And he studied the Tao or something, but he said, I'm not going to say what my songs mean because it might mean something to other people, and I don't want to take that away from them. But I know for me, when I for instance, was reading the Big Book, certain things jumped out and really resonated with me. So that's interesting.
As if you were finding what you were looking for, right?
Yeah, as if God was presenting it, in a sense. That's a good point, yeah.
It's yeah, it really is that way, isn't it? That when we read this stuff, we're like, wow, where's this been all my life, How did they know that? This has been here this whole time?
Yeah, it often feels like that.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes I've read it 100 or more times, and then I read it, and then I finally get it after it, probably surrendering something, opening up, allowing it to hit me in a certain way instead of my way all the time.
He who has ears to hear, let him hear, right? Yeah. I think sometimes we're just not ready to hear things. That's good. Thank you. Okay. The Way of Chuang Tzu, page 15. Did anything jump out to you guys there? Well, hello, Lala. Good to see you, ma'am.
Me?
Yes, glad to see you.
I know. I'm sorry I'm late. I just looked at my calendar and I was like, oh, it's today.
Good to have you.
I know. I'm glad to be back.
We're on page 15 in the PDF that I had. Anything jump out there to you guys? I did not have anything until I got to page 18 that I wanted to talk about. If y'all had anything in there, let me know.
I had something on page 17 that I thought was interesting.
Okay, ma'am.
They have that little section on personalism versus individualism. And it says that personalism gives value to the person and not the individual self. And it says it respects the unique and unalienable right of the other person as well as one's own. And then it says a respect that is centered only on one's individual self to the exclusion of others proves itself to be fraudulent. And I thought that was really interesting because I think in my addiction, and I think just in my natural nature sometimes, I really want to be for myself and looking out for number one, And so I really liked that part about a respect that is centered only on one's individual self to the exclusion of others proves itself to be fraudulent. And I can relate that to, in recovery where we're keeping what we have by helping other people.
That's the opposite, right?
Right. That's the opposite. So that part stood out to me as being important.
And we can just start from there and read down, if that's okay. The classic Zhu philosophy of Confucius and his followers can be called a traditional personalism built on the basic social relationships and obligations that are essential to a humane life, and that when carried out as they should be, develop human potentialities of each person in his relation to others in fulfilling the commands of nature. This is the part I really like. In manifested by tradition, which are essentially the commands of love. So he's saying the commands of nature are the commands of love. Man develops his own inner potential for love, understanding, reverence, and wisdom. And that's what he means as being the superior man or the noble-minded man when we hear that in Lao Tzu's teachings or his sayings. Fully in harmony with heaven, earth, his sovereign, his parents and children, and his fellow men by his obedience to Tao. So following what's natural, we're studying a book by Joko Beck called Everyday Zen. And she said that when you get rid of the ego, that there's nothing left there but compassion. So it's the same thing. It's saying the same thing, is that when we get ourselves out of the way, that's why, I don't know if there's a God or not, but I just know that I feel better when I do things for other people. There's got to be some force of love behind that. So, yeah, that's good. Thanks, Kate. Then I had this part at the bottom of page 18. Anyone, or lower third, anyone who is guided by the profit motive, even though it be for the profit of the society in which he belongs, is not capable of living a genuinely moral life. Even when his acts do not conflict with the moral law, they remain amoral because they're motivated by the desire of profit and not the love of the good. We see that a lot in some of our Taoist stuff. Well, we see it everywhere. Any comments?
I kind of want to go back to what you read originally, when in fulfilling the commands of nature as manifested by tradition, which are essentially commands of love, man develops his own inner potential for love, understanding, reverence, and wisdom. And then it goes on, he becomes a superior man or a noble-minded man, fully in harmony with heaven, earth, his sovereign, his parents and children, and his fellow men by his obedience to Tao. And commands of nature. I guess it makes me feel like I've been fighting nature, my whole life. And I don't know. It's this fully in harmony. It feels like you're in balance with. It just reminds me of, I don't know, this is really far out stuff for some people, but if anybody has looked into soilless garden, it's not hydroponics. And I'm doing some work in that realm, and it mentions nature and it mentions balance. And there's just things keep coming up for me in the past week about nature, about balance, about harmony, about we're all kind of connected. Not kind of, we are connected, and how I could be, have a ditch digging company, but if I'm in perfect balance, I can affect so many people in a positive way. I mean, I don't have to be a sensei, or I don't have to be some, I don't know, a teacher of handicapped children, or, you can do something that maybe they won't get a lot of respect as a profession, and actually be in balance and harmony, and it can matter, and it can spread, and it can affect a ton of people. And I don't know, all of that's just kind of coming together for me on this.
Kurt, it's interesting you mentioned that. I've been listening to a book, and Zach and I talked about this yesterday, The 3 Pillars of Zen. I'd recommend that on your Audible. And I was listening to it, and it's really talking about the fact that we're all connected. I mean, period. And we're this big body, like you were talking about. We all have our part to play. So we just have to find what that part is. And we affect the people that we're supposed to affect. We help the people we're supposed to help. I mean, every cell on my body, whether I think is significant or not, is significant and has its part to play in my body. I mean, I couldn't do without parts that I don't even think about, but that doesn't mean they're any less important. And it's the same thing you're talking about, doing our natural state of things. And if we can get self out of the way so that we're able to do that, then yeah, we can be full of peace and joy from doing that, I think, is how that, and have a satisfaction we can't find any other way.
Yeah. And the other thing about that the whole thing is he develops his own inner potential for love, understanding, and reverence and wisdom. And that word in there is develops, because I don't know how to do that. I just, right. You know what I mean? It's something that I I do need to allow, and I need to surrender to, and I need to surrender to control. And there's a lot of things. A lot of it for me now is just surrender to the life and the process. But at the same time, I have to develop I don't know how to have a loving relationship. I've been drinking and drugging since I was 16, and I quit at 48. I'll be 5 years sober on June 1st. And when was I supposed to learn that? Talk about, like I've said it before with a couple of you guys, I've heard it, like, arrested development. I mean, I'm playing catch up, and I don't know, to develop all this stuff it's an actionable step for me, if that makes sense.
I think, Craig, Kurt, I think that we're already those things, and we have to wake up to it. I think it was just really providence that Bill used the phrase in the 12th step that about waking up spiritually. How does it say the 12th step? Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Mm-hmm. I think we're already all that stuff. We're just not awake to it. I think it's already there, and we just can't see it because we've got it covered up with all of our crap, all of our fear and, self.
It really is. And I don't want to hijack this thing. But
no, go ahead.
It's just been a lot of stuff this past week, and hunkering down with my girlfriend. We've been seeing each other for a year, and it's brought, that whole relationship thing has brought all kinds of challenges. And then some days I feel completely broken, like I just don't know how to love. And it's just, it's mind boggling. And then I know I do, because I have 2 daughters that I love dearly, but I have felt like I have been broken for a long time. You know what I mean? But then I feel it every now and then. I don't know. I'm having a hard time putting it to words. But I'm trying, and I'm trying to develop, and I super care about, anybody I've met in sobriety, and my local guys, and I know some of you better than others, but like Buddy and Craig, so there's a whole thing, and I really appreciate that. So, man, it develops his own inner potential for love. I think that's what I'm doing right now, to be honest with you.
Someone was riding on my behind the other day, riding too close to me. And in the past, when people would do that, I'd slam on my brakes and I'd get all huffy, and all that stuff, be a behind, and I'd been listening to this Zen book, and I thought, oh, wait, I am riding really close to me. I thought about them as being me, and I was like, okay, and like, well, because we're all connected. It really is more of that than anything else. Like you're talking about, this capacity to love is this capacity to realize that when I hurt you, it's like me cutting off my own hand.
Yeah. And how can I even develop love if all I think about is myself? I mean, that's where I'm not at, but that's the past 5 years. That's what I've been digging out of, is how, and I see it when I work with sponsees, how freaking disgustingly selfish they are. And then it just reminds me of, I was probably 10 times worse, than that. So, and more pathetic, because it took me, 15 years longer. I stayed out there than the guys I'm working with, so.
Y'all going to get a kick out of this. I'm going to tell them, Craig. I had to apologize to a sponsee today. I got mad and hung the phone up on a sponsee today. I haven't hung up on somebody in years. I mean, I haven't gotten that irate, because they just wouldn't get it, and I got tired of hearing it. And I was just like, I got to go. And I just, in mid-sentence, just left, and I was like, buddy, come on. Where did that come from? It took hours to get over that. Do what, Craig?
I just want to point out, not even I've pushed it that far yet.
No, I've not gotten mad. I don't get mad at sponsees. I got mad at this guy, I really got mad, and dearly love him, but I just got mad. Oh my God, buddy, come on. You can't do that. But it's just, it really is a process of developing this love, Kurt. You're right. Yeah. There.
Yeah, I just had a thought. One of my biggest pet peeves or resentments, if you will, is something that's always bugging me, is people who don't say hi or wave, right? And I've carried that quote unquote burden for years, right? And in the program, we get to kind of look at those things and actually step back and go, what's that about? And I think what Kurt was just talking about got me thinking about it. It's real. Imagine two people, because this probably happens to me all the time, who are thinking that exact same thought. Like, look at this guy coming. He's not even going to wave at me. He's not going to wave. And so I don't wave to him. But what if he was thinking the same thing, right? And I'm not making the world a better place. But, I'm making it all about me, right? So I think our natural inclination is to be selfish, right? Even when we think we're the good one. Because in my mind, I'm like, I would wave to this guy, or something like that, And a lot of times I wave to people and they don't wave back. And I, my kids go, why do you always wave to people? You don't know.
Like for them to wave to you, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's true. But they got their own lives going on. And, it's not all about me, but I don't know why this connection, the thing that Kurt was talking about, like we're all connected and, surely that at this time in our history, it can be more apparent, right? The people who can't cut hair now because the salons are closed, and just all these things, that you just don't think about typically, so we couldn't, all because something in China, which may be where the Tao originated, I think. It's kind of fascinating. And happened, and now we're all, shut down as a country. We're definitely all connected, right? And then the country shuts down, and then suddenly pollution goes down. But also gas prices go down, and then it's like the gas companies are freaking out. It's like, it turns out we really are all connected. It's just interesting. That's it.
Thanks, Derek. It goes back to what Kate was saying, too, that if someone's only centered on themselves to the exclusion of others, it's just not a productive way to live. It doesn't work. Any other comments? I have something on 20. Act really freely and creatively in response to the ever new demands of unforeseen situations. And I like that idea of responding. That's in the middle of the page there. That's really how we're to behave in all things, is just freely and creatively in response. When we're developing this love, Kurt, it's in response. We're learning to really, my whole life is becoming a response to what's going on instead of me having to originate. I'm really seeming to just respond to things. Are y'all seeing that too?
Yeah. You mean in time, this particular time in our history?
I mean, in everything. Like.
Oh, just like a
where you're being
lifestyle.
pushed. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, major decisions now seem to me be responding to situations and just going with the flow instead of me having to work and push and make something happen kind of thing.
There's it's sense, a different. It's a sense of lack of control.
Yeah.
Also in this time, but we instead of getting all anxious about it and what's going to happen, we surrender to it.
Yeah.
This is beyond our control. Let's just do what they tell us to do and go with the flow, and we'll come out of it. God willing.
And learning to do that in everything, Marla, not just right now during COVID, but like with everything. All the major decisions I've made in the last 2 or 3 years have all been in response. Not really anything that I've had to make happen or force in some way. It's always a response.
That's cool.
Something. So, Yeah, that's good. Anything else, guys? What else are y'all? Anything else standing out?
I confess that I went right to the useless train. I read that several times. I didn't even read this part of it. I just went to. So I'll be good next week.
Okay. Well, we might get there today. I'm moving on. I'm on page 23 already. He believes that the whole concept of happiness and unhappiness, talking about Chuang Tzu, of happiness and unhappiness, is ambiguous from the start, since it's situated in the world of objects. This is no less true of more refined concepts like virtue, justice, and so on. In fact, it's especially true of good and evil, or right and wrong. Continuing that whole idea that it just is, that taking those labels interfere, they don't help, right? Those boxes that we put all these things in, we don't know what's good or what's bad. And then at the bottom of 23, the way of Tao is to begin with the simple good with which one is endowed by the very fact of existence, instead of self-conscious cultivation of this good, which vanishes when we look at it and becomes intangible when we try to grasp it. We grow quietly in the humility of a simple, ordinary life, and this way is analogous, at least psychologically, to the Christian life of faith. It is more a matter of believing the good than of seeing it as the fruit of one's effort. That's like, for me, what resonated with me with that was like that idea that I used to have of good things happen to me as a reward for the kind of life that I was trying to live, instead of now the things that I could perceive as good happen just because I'm where good things are happening. I'm in the flow now. It's not a reward. It's not like a job I've completed, so here's your pay. It's a different way of looking at the whole thing. Or this part in that next paragraph. This next paragraph's about Wu Wei. I'm just going to read the whole paragraph. The secret of the way proposed by Chuang Tzu is therefore not the accumulation of virtue and merit, but Wu Wei, the non-doing or non-action, which is not intent upon results and is not concerned with consciously laid plans or deliberately organized endeavors. My greatest happiness consists precisely in doing nothing whatever that is calculated to obtain happiness. Perfect joy is to be without joy. If you ask what ought to be done and what ought not to be done on earth to produce happiness, I answer that these questions do not have a fixed and predetermined answer to suit every case. If one is in harmony with the Tao, the cosmic Tao, the great Tao, the answer will make itself clearer when the time comes to act. For then one will act not according to the human and self-conscious mode of deliberation, but according to the divine and spontaneous mode of Wu Wei, which is the mode of action of Tao itself, and is therefore the source of all good. Mm-hmm. The other way, the way of conscious striving, even though it may claim to be the way of virtue, is fundamentally a way of self-aggrandizement, and it is consequently bound to come in conflict with the Tao. He's talking about that way that natural way that develops love, Kurt. Mm-hmm. That's what it's saying. This is Thomas Merton's interpretation of Wu Wei and the Tao, and how happiness works. It works from doing the right thing in the moment. It's like the fruit of just doing the right thing. The same as, I'm surprised he didn't quote Romans 14 in this, about the kingdom of God's not meat and drink, but righteousness, peace, and joy. Because the kingdom of God is the will of God. So the will of God brings peace and joy in your life. And that's exactly, I think that's what this is saying. It's not about, performing. It's about doing the right thing in the moment. Like I said, the answer will make itself clear when the time comes. And I had a note beside that you remember, I don't know, you hear people pray that, for God to open a door, that kind of a prayer, the door opening prayer. Well, the door's not opened until it's time to go through it. They don't open the door a month early. So, I'm going to be over there. No, it opens at the moment it's time to go through it. We want it open. Well, I want it open. Like, I want to see 10 doors ahead, right? But it doesn't work that way. And that's why that reminded me of that, about the answer making itself clear when the time comes to act. I don't like that. That's really, truly is a living by faith,
It's exactly how I was taught not to live.
Yes, Kurt. Yeah, man.
It's a complete opposite.
At first I thought, is this ever going to change? Am I ever going to be able to just, and just learning how to be comfortable with this and say, okay, well, let's see where this door leads, that kind of a thinking. Yeah, that's good. Any other comments, guys?
Just say it reminds me of the Serenity Prayer a little, because for me, the Serenity Prayer, I always want to latch onto that second part, the courage of things, change the things I can, because I used to think I could change everything, including my, the ultimate change would be to drink. And then it all changes for me. But even, now that I'm not doing that, I find myself doing the serenity to accept the things I cannot change more than anything else seems to work better than that second part for me. I don't know why, but turns out there's not a whole lot of things I can change.
Hasn't that changed for you though, Derek, with time in the program and then in recovery? It used to be this way, that you had all these things over here that you could change and very little that you could not, and it's kind of seesawed the other way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What can I change?
Yeah.
That's what I wonder sometimes, And I know there's a danger in using that as an excuse, to not act, but I don't seem to have that problem. I seem to have the opposite problem. Because I want to change everything.
Right.
Yes. Because see, when you do that, Derek, it's like you're in control.
Yeah.
So you're not giving up that control, which is a gift to give up control. It's not a curse. That's a gift.
Plus, getting some awareness that control is a freaking illusion. It's an illusion. You are not controlling what you think you're controlling. I'm not. And it's to just allow it to be, man, life just gets better, but constantly. So I learned that and I said, oh, wow, life is better. Look at my relationships and, oh, wow, my daughters, we're doing great. And then a challenge comes in and I immediately go back to, oh, I know what's best here. And then I start suffering. And then I'm like, oh, wow, okay, there I am. There I go again. And it's like this process, constant process.
But you get faster at it, don't you, Kurt? You address it quicker. You don't burn the whole house down. You just burn a room. That.
I just flood the basement, not the upstairs.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't suffer for 5 days straight now, like I did a few years ago.
Man, I so hated apologizing to my sponsee this morning. I so hated doing it. But I did it immediately. I did it. I called him. Of course, he let it go to voicemail because he didn't want to talk to me, So but I did it verbally instead of texting him and doing it, And I said, and I was just, that stuff bothers you more than it used to, too. You're more sensitive.
Totally.
As you learn to love people.
And what it does to you internally.
Oh, yeah. I still feel like I've had a hangover. I still feel like an emotional hangover all day. I had to stop and meditate because I was just so, felt bad. I just felt sick.
It's so strange because I would go on a run for, 10 days straight and it wouldn't affect me any. And I get a little upset at somebody and it messes my day up.
Oh man, I used to just live on that anger. I was angry all the time.
Yeah.
I remember on vacation one time, my kids said, "Dad, you're messing up our vacation because you're mad." And I'm like, "Am I mad? I'm not mad." I'm not mad. Y'all shut up. But yeah, I was mad. I was mad all the time. Yeah. I lived in anger. Mm-hmm. Ooh, I'm so grateful I don't have to live in that anymore. Anything else in there, guys? I'm moving on. I'm on 25 now. Middle of the page. If you persist in trying to attain what is never attained, in reasoning about what cannot be understood, you will be destroyed. On the other hand, if he can only know when to stop, be content to wait, listen, and give up his own useless strivings, this melts the ice. Then he will begin to grow without watching himself grow and without any appetite for self-improvement. And is that not, that really is perfection for me. Growing, beginning to grow without watching myself grow and without any appetite for self-improvement.
Self-seeking will slip away.
Yes. Thank you, Marla.
Just had to throw that in there.
Yes. Okay, on 26, middle of the page, all deliberate, systematic, and reflexive self-cultivation, whether active or contemplative, personalistic, Kate, or politically committed, Marla, cuts one off from the mysterious but indispensable contact with the Tao, the hidden mother of all life and truth. And then that last full paragraph, a contemplative and interior life which would simply make the subject more aware of himself and permit him to become obsessed with his own interior progress would, for Chuang Tzu, be no less an illusion than the active life of the benevolent man who would try by his own efforts to impose his ideal of the good on those who might oppose this idea, and thus, in his eyes, become enemies of the good. True tranquility sought by the man of the Tao, tranquility in the action of non-action, in other words, a tranquility which transcends the division between activity and contemplation by entering into union with the nameless and invisible Tao. Just realizing we're one, right? There is no spoon, right? I just watched my Matrixes again. Hey, if I ever doubt the providence of God, I just watched the second Matrix from about 50 minutes till about an hour and a half, that part in there. And man, I see it everywhere. If I ever doubt God, I just watch that movie. That's how Morpheus acts toward that whole thing. Man, it just motivates me. Plus, I get to watch Monica Bellucci for a while. That's even a bonus. No comments, guys? Page 27. No one is so wrong as the man who knows all the answers. I have more on here, but that covers that. And at the bottom, the last paragraph there, Chuang Tzu teaches you never find happiness until you stop looking for it. Till you stop looking.
I can't find that. No one is so wrong. Where? Can you read that again? Oh, I see it. I got it now. No one is so wrong as the man who knows, or the woman.
All the answers. Very top of 27, Kurt. Yeah. I have a couple more things, but nothing really. Y'all have anything else?
The only thing I was going to say about that is no one is so wrong as the man who knows all the answers is, it just goes back to a discussion I had with this guy. He's not in recovery, but I respect him a lot. And we were talking about beliefs, and he told me, a belief is people take their beliefs to their grave. And why would you do that? A belief is only a placeholder until further investigation proves that maybe that you're not right. Maybe the belief is flawed. And so no one is so wrong as a man who knows all the answers. So yeah, it's better to be, for me, curious, because I just like life more. I just get off on life more when I'm curious and I don't know everything, and I want to learn things and develop and do things differently and all that, and try to be open. So I really like that one little sentence there.
Also, Kurt, that reminded me of how, in recovery, that we shift from a belief mentality to an experience mentality. We move from belief to experience, because it's not about what we believe, it's about what we've experienced. That's why we share our experience, strength, and hope. We don't share our belief in what will work. We share what worked. So leaving it with what worked instead of, what you should do, staying out of the advice business, staying out of what you must believe.
Right, totally.
And moving over to this is what worked for me, take it or leave it. That's good stuff, guys. Other comments?
Yeah, just what you're talking about there, that kind of puts you on the level of the sage. If you're not giving advice, you're just giving your experience rather than saying, you should do this, you should do that. This kind of works for me. And that kind of comes out in one of the other pages. It says, one basic characteristic of the sage is that he recognizes himself to be as other men are. He does not set himself apart from others and above them, and yet there is a difference. He differs in his heart from other men, since he is centered on doubt and not on himself, which has been a big learning curve for myself, just knowing that things aren't really about me. Most things aren't about me. In fact, do you know what? Absolutely nothing's about me, and it's a very difficult thing to realize that, do you know what? You're no longer the center of the universe. For many a year, I thought I was.
No longer, you never were, right? But you didn't know it.
Yeah, and it's a difficult realization when you come from years of drinking and just thinking that everything revolves around you. It's a big come down to think, do you know what? Nothing's about you, and everything you've neglected and everything you've not seen. It does kind of puts you back in your place, just realizing that it's just there's other things going on in this world rather than just me. And I think being able to live on that plane, which I think the Chuang Tzu kind of looks at, is basically like, this is how we do it.
That's good. Any other comments, guys? Zach, my friend, you've been quiet today. You have anything to add?
I was just listening. Glad to hear you guys. I'm also hanging out in a park, and it's pretty windy, and so I didn't want my mic to be, to not sound too staticky.
Okay. Well, glad you could join us, sir.
Yeah.
You could use your beard as a windshield. That's a crack beard.
It does work. It's harder to hear the mic, though.
Anything else, guys? That's good. We'll be ready for what I'm going to try to do this week with the useless tree. Are there any other comments on any of the first chapter that you guys want to go over?
Not yet.
Okay. The useless tree, I printed off, and I'm going to meditate on this all week and just try to every day get it out, read through it, just kind of meditate on it, see what kind of what we come up with on that, and then I don't know. We'll just see where this goes. We might move on to the next one if we run out. If we have time, I don't know. I don't know if this will take the whole hour. Who knows?
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll just see.
We have no control.
No, there is, Marla. We've got to have 1 hour every week. We must. This is the Tao podcast. It has to be an hour long. You know that. That's funny, isn't it?
Yes, it's funny.
Just set this up, buddy.
Oh my God. I thought I was coming into this COVID. I thought I was at like 60% surrendered.
Oh.
And I really am finding out I'm really more like 30% or maybe 25. I mean, it makes you stir crazy to be home, or it does me to be home all the time, and I found, a little bit of that anger I had with my sponsee this morning was this whole overall thing. I'm finding that I'm a little more easily aggravated. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Where's this coming from?
Makes
so
sense.
I've really had to work on surrender and letting go of the control. I thought that I'd let go of more of the control than I had. So,
yeah, the challenges will show you. I know. The window of tolerance is not what it was 3 months ago.
The window of tolerance. Ooh.
It's like.
Barely
you just want to stay inside,
Oh, that's good stuff, guys. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, buddy.
We will, if there's nothing else, we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.